Hello, this video is about dividing with a fraction and a whole number. So this is the beginning of our journey into dividing with fractions, and if you haven't watched the video about reciprocals, you may need to watch that if you don't know what a reciprocal is. We do touch on it briefly in here, but it's really important when we do this to understand what the reciprocal is. So to start with, 3/5 of a chocolate bar divided by 4 children, or shared between 4 children would be better. So going back to our bars, we're going to draw this out. Here's my bar, and I'm going to divide my bar into fifths. And I have 3/5. So this is how much chocolate bar the 4 children have to share between them. So now what we want to do is we want to share this 3/5 between 4 children. So we're going to cut it up, and the easiest way to cut it up is to cut it up in the opposite direction. And this is as we did multiplying fractions. So we're cutting up the other way. So if you look here, I've divided across this way into 4 bits. So I now can see that my whole diagram, or my bar, is divided into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. It's divided into 20 pieces. Now if I now think about how much my one person gets, my one child is going to, this is my one child, because this is just one child, remember? There are 4 children in total. I've cut it up into here, but one child is just going to get this amount. Remember, they're not going to get all the way to the end, because this bit here I haven't shaded in because I haven't got it. My one person is just going to get this bit here. So I'm going to draw a box around how much my one child is going to get. So they're just going to get that bit there. So that means that the answer is 3/20. Remember, it's 20ths because I've divided this all up into 20ths now, and it's 3 because having got my 3/5 and cut it into 4 pieces, one person will just get this amount, and that's 3. So it's 3 out of 20, 3/20. And that's division. So 3/5 divided by 5. So I'm going to write that. This is the actual calculation you did. Sorry, 3/5 divided by 4 is equal to 3/20. Now, you've watched this one. The next one, I would suggest that we draw it out together so that you have that representation in your practicing. So our next example is 3/4 divided by 2. So we're going to start by you writing this question out, and we're going to draw a bar for 3/4. So there's my question, and here's my bar. If you haven't yet copied that, you need to press pause, you need to copy it, and then you need to press play. So now I'm going to divide it by 2. So remember, I do the division, as I've cut the bars this way, I do my division across here. Just like when I did multiplying, I did one fraction here and one fraction there. Now when I'm doing dividing, I do the bar for 3/4 here. Remember, I want to shade in my 3/4, so that's my 3/4 shaded in. And now I'm going to divide it by 2. So how much does one person get? Well, that's what one part is. So I just want to make sure that's very clear on my diagram. So press pause. Make sure you've got your diagram now sorted. So the next bit will be dividing it by 2, so cutting it into this way. And then circling how much one person would get. Because if you've cut it in 2, one person gets this and one person gets this bit. So hopefully you've copied that down. And now what we're going to do is write the answer. So the answer to 3/4 divided by 2, well, I need a denominator to start with. So how many pieces have I got in total? Be careful. It's 8. Good. And at the top here, how many pieces have I got for one person? That's 3. So 3/8. Okay. Make sure you've got that copied down before we move on to the next one. So here's our next example. Again, press pause now. I want you to write the question down and I want you to draw me a diagram representing 5/6. So you're just doing this bit here. What's my diagram for 5/6? When you've done that, press play. So here's my diagram for 5/6. Hopefully you've got the same. And now I'm dividing by 3. And remember, I do that on this side. So press pause and divide it by 3. What will your diagram look like? So I'm going to divide by 3. Remember, I do it on the opposite side there. And how much does one person get? Well, one person would get this bit here. So 5/6 divided by 3 equals, are you able to answer that for me? Have a go. So I'm hoping that you've noticed how many pieces it's divided into, so what my denominator is. So my denominator is 18. And how many pieces does that one person get? 5. Did you get that? If not, go back. Understand where the 18 comes from. Understand where that 5 comes from. Understand what the diagram's telling you. If you really understand the diagram, when you get stuck in the future, you'll go back and you'll draw that diagram and it will unlock the maths for you. And here, so I'm going to ask you to start by drawing me the diagram for this. Press pause, off you go. So hopefully that's your diagram for 4/5. Now you've got to divide by 6. Remember, the division happens on this side, so you're dividing across like this. Off you go, divide it by 6. So I'm hoping that's what you've drawn in yours. Can you now draw a box around how much one person gets? So I'm going to be drawing round that bit there. That's what one person gets, that bit there, just so that I can see it. You could use a highlighter pen. It might help you. So now I want you to write down for me the answer for 4/5 divided by 6. Press pause, have a go at writing down what you think that is. So I make the denominator 30 because there are 30 pieces in here, because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that way, 1, 2, 3, 6 that way, so 6 lots of 5 is 30, so my denominator is 30, and the number that goes on the top is how much one person would get or how much one strip is, so this is this bit here, so it's 4, so I can write 4/30. Now, is that in its simplest form? Can I write an equivalent fraction with a smaller denominator? I can. Because these numbers are both even, it means I can divide both of these by 2. And my answer is 2/15. So 4/30 is equal to 2/15. And that's my answer. So you're now dividing. You're taking a fraction and you're dividing by a whole number. But now I want to show you something. You actually knew how to do this all along, and some of you may have spotted it and others of you may not have. And before we can go to how this all links together, I need to remind ourselves of the reciprocal. So, if you've forgotten the reciprocal of 5 is 1/5. You notice I don't put an equal sign because they are not equal. They are reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 5 is 1/5. It's really good to say maths out loud. So say that word reciprocal. The more times you say it, the more times you'll be able to say it. So if you haven't said it, reciprocal, say it 5 times, make yourself say it. So the reciprocal of 1/4 is 4. Now the reciprocal of 2/3 is 3/2, or 3 out of 2. Okay, I'm going to write some for you to do now. Can you find the reciprocal of these? Go. Press pause. Press play when you've done them. So, I'm hoping you've done the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 3 is 1/3. Well done if you got that right. The reciprocal of 1/5 is 5. And the reciprocal of A over B, did you get stuck because I changed to letters? I hope not. I hope you just went, well, that's B over A, because it's the same thing. Doesn't matter if we use letters or numbers, maths stays the same. It's fantastic maths. There's a set of rules and we stick to them. And so if you learn a rule with numbers, the same rule is there for letters and algebra. And so when you're learning this, you've actually learnt the algebra anyway. So we can remember what the reciprocal is, and now I'm going to link our knowledge of the reciprocal with this back here. So remember 4/5 divided by 6, we did 4/5 bar and we divided by 6. And we've just remembered how to do the reciprocal. And I want us now to go back to 3/5 divided by 4. Now, 3/5 divided by 4, we have just done beautifully. And we drew out this diagram for 3/5. I'm going to try and draw it a little bit smaller because I want to fit a lot on this page. And we shaded in our 3/5. Let's just change that bit there. And we then divided it by 4. And we wrote the answer for 3/5 divided by 4. And we said, if you remember, that was 3/20. Now, we've just talked about the reciprocal. And I want us to look at a different calculation. And I want us to look at 3/5 times 1/4, because we've learnt this previously. And when we do 3/5 times 1/4, We again divide up into fifths. We again colour in 3 or shade in 3/5. And when we're multiplying by 1/4, because this is all our 1/5 along here, each of these is 1/5. We then do quarters going across this way. 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. And this here is the same as this. These are the same. So dividing by 4 is the same as multiplying by 1/4. Let's do that again. So dividing by 4 is the same as multiplying by 1/4 because I still end up with this section here, which is equal to 3/20. So what I know from this is dividing by 4 is the same as multiplying by 1/4. And that's really important. And 4 and 1/4 are reciprocals. So dividing by 4 is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal of 4. Let's say that again. Dividing by 4 is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal of 4, which is the same as multiplying by 1/4. So looking at these now, we're going to write these calculations different ways because we know about multiplying and the reciprocal. Now, dividing by 4 is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal of 4, which is 1/4. Dividing by 2 is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal of 2. Dividing by 3 is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal of 3. Okay, can you write this last one out? So have a look. And now, and see if you can write something down. Press pause, and when you're ready, press play. So hopefully you've written 4/5 is the same as multiplying by 1/6. Did you do that? If you did, well done. And just a reminder about multiplying fractions so that we can finish these off. If you remember, we found when we learnt to multiply fractions, we can look at the diagram, or that the multiplying of the numerators and the denominators. So if we multiply the numerators, we get the new numerator, and that's because we've got one lot of 3 there. And we can multiply our denominators because we've got 5 there and 4 there, which is the 20. So we can take that shortcut because we have our understanding from here. And then I can work out my answers, which would be 3/20, which is 3/8, which is 5/18, and this last one, which is 4/30. Now, if you look at all of these questions, these were the questions we did at the beginning. So the big thing that I want you to get is that dividing by a number is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal. So we're going to now practice that on the next page. So first of all, just so that we write this down in our books or make a poster of it or something, because actually writing something down and thinking about what you're writing really makes you think. If you're just watching this, it's not actually teaching you, it's the doing of something that actually makes your brain engage with it. So writing down dividing by 3 is the same as multiplying by 1/3. And dividing by 1/4 is the same as multiplying by 4. Look at that. When you divide by 3, it's the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. Dividing by 1/4 is the same as multiplying by 4. Pause, write it down. Get thinking about it. What does it mean? Do you understand it? If you need to, go back, watch why. Watch why dividing a bar up into 4 pieces is the same as cutting it into quarters. And think about a cake. Cutting it up into 4 pieces is the same as cutting it up into quarters, isn't it? So think about that. That dividing by a number is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal. Important to understand it and to understand the language. So now, here's some questions for us to do. So, dividing by 4, I want you to think in your head, what do you think I'm going to write down? Yep, that's right, hopefully. 1/4. It's the same as multiplying by 1/4. So dividing by 2, what's that the same as? Multiply by 1/2. What about dividing by 1/3? What's dividing by 1/3 the same as? Multiplying by 3, because 3 is the reciprocal of 1/3. What's dividing by 3/4 the same as? Multiplying by 4/3. Now look at those. Do you understand them all? Are you happy with that? Because the next thing is for you to do some yourself. So here are 5 questions. Notice that sometimes it's a divide and sometimes it's multiply. And what you need to do is to remember what are these the same as. Go back and look at the previous part of the video if you're not sure. Have a go at those. When you're ready for the answers, press play. And I do think it's worth you writing out all of this into your books or onto some paper. As I keep saying to you, it's just writing answers isn't enough. It's the real thinking of all of it that helps you. So press pause, press play when you've done it. So I'm hoping you're there now. So divided by 5 is the same as multiplying by 1/5, because the link between dividing and multiplying is dividing by a number is the same as multiplying. So dividing by a number is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal. So what did you write for the next one? If you got that one wrong, I'd press pause now and have another go, correct them. So multiplying by 2 is the same as dividing by its reciprocal, which is 1/2. So dividing by 1/5 is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal, which is 5. So multiplying by 2/3 is the same as dividing by its reciprocal, which is 3/2. And multiplying by over b is the same as dividing by b over a. Did you get all of those correct? If you did, well done. If you didn't, go back, understand where that misconception is, why you're not quite getting it right, and then you need to do some practice.